The duty to die is the most terrifying lie sold to humanity. Erich Fromm. Who invented the duty to die? Who decided that your body, your life, your final breath belonged to something or someone else? Who planted this thought that dying for a flag, for a land, for a system is not just allowed, but necessary? Dying for your country, for freedom, for honor, for the right side of history, for your people, for your brothers, for your culture, for your past, for your future. Dying because someone has to. But who said that? Who wrote this invisible contract between your heart and a concept? Who benefits from this arrangement where you bleed and they survive? Some say it's religion, that dying for faith is a sacred act. Others point to ancient tribal instincts to protect your own. Some blame governments who mold citizens like soldiers from childhood. Others, the culture itself, where sacrifice is romanticized and survival is guilted. But beneath it all lies something older than history, a shadow in the collective psyche. Because the idea of honorable death is not born from logic, it's rooted in fear, in shame, in generations of emotional blackmail disguised as virtue. From a young age, we're taught that to be good, you must give up parts of yourself, then more, then everything. And when you resist, you're selfish, a traitor, a coward, until you start believing that the only way to prove your worth is to disappear. That's how it begins. That's how they make you think that dying isn't a tragedy, but a duty. This is not about one country. This is not about one war. This is about a system, invisible, powerful, that turns your soul into a weapon and your body into collateral. No one is born believing they owe their life to an institution. This belief is installed, programmed, repeated until it feels like your own thought. But it's not. You weren't born to die for someone else's plan. You were born to live for your own. And if this hits somewhere deep, subscribe to the channel. Algorithms will show this to those who feel the same, but haven't found the words yet. Join the Telegram. We go deeper there, beyond the surface, beyond the fear. And if you know someone carrying this weight, share this video. Sometimes, one sentence is enough to change a direction. No one wakes up one day and decides, I will give my life away. That thought doesn't come from you. It comes from layers of conditioning, built slowly, methodically, and silently. From the moment you're a child, you're rewarded for obedience and punished for questioning. You're told what's right and wrong before you even understand your own emotions. You're handed morals, beliefs, national pride, like clothing, and you're expected to wear them without ever asking who made them or why. And if you take them off, you're naked in a world that calls you broken. That's how the system ensures survival, not yours, but its own. From school books to ceremonies, from holidays to movies, everything feeds the same narrative. The good person sacrifices. The hero dies. The martyr is remembered. You're not taught to value your life. You're taught to spend it well. For others, for ideas, for causes. Not because you chose them, but because someone chose them for you and told you they were sacred. The word duty is hammered into the mind before the mind has a chance to think. You're not taught to say no. You're taught to be proud when you say yes to things you don't understand. This isn't just about the military, it's in families too. How many people have given up their lives for parents who never saw them, for relationships that drained them, for jobs that owned them? How many lived entire decades carrying someone else's expectations, wearing someone else's guilt, until they forgot what their own voice even sounds like? That is the first battlefield. Not out there, but inside you. And most people lose the war before they even realize it started. They call it duty, responsibility, patriotism, loyalty. But when you peel away the words, what you often find is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of shame, fear of being called ungrateful, soft, selfish. So people comply. They nod, they go, and then they die. Not always literally, but piece by piece, until there's nothing left but a body that functions and a soul that doesn't. You were told that to be worthy, you have to serve something bigger than yourself. But no one explained that serving doesn't have to mean surrendering, that living with integrity doesn't mean dying for an image, and that saying no isn't betrayal, it's awakening. Because the truth is brutal. The system doesn't care about your inner world. It wants function, not freedom. Performance, not presence. The more obedient you are, the more useful you are. And the moment you stop complying, you become dangerous. Not because you're violent, but because you're free. Because someone who thinks for themselves can't be owned. Someone who chooses life can't be controlled. And that's what they fear most. Wars don't start on battlefields. They begin in rooms full of power. Quiet, distant, calculated. The ones who start wars are rarely the ones who fight them, and never the ones who die in them. The true architects of conflict don't hold rifles, they hold narratives. They know the most efficient weapon isn't a missile, it's belief. Belief that there's something to protect, something to fear, something worth dying for. If you can control what people believe, you can make them walk into fire without a second thought. That's how modern manipulation works. It's not about forcing anyone, it's about making them think it's their choice. Feed them fear, feed them patriotism, feed them outrage, show them an enemy. Repeat it until it becomes part of their identity. Until the line between personal conviction and implanted programming disappears. Then people don't just obey, they believe, they volunteer, they become proud to be used. History is a loop of this same strategy. Create the illusion of threat, dehumanize the other, make people feel righteous in their aggression. And while the masses are busy fighting, those in power expand, gain land, gain control, sign deals, silence opposition. And when it's all over, they write the story. They choose the heroes and the villains. They build statues, they bury bodies, and they move on, untouched, unnamed, unpunished. This is not conspiracy, this is repetition. You can trace the same structure from empire to empire, from century to century. The tools have evolved, but the logic hasn't. It's always the poor, the broken, the emotionally wounded, who are sent to die. Always the emotionally hijacked, who believe they're doing something noble, when in reality, they're acting out a plan that was never theirs to begin with. People don't want war. Ask anyone. No mother wants her son in a coffin. No child wants to grow up fatherless. No honest person wants to kill a stranger. But it takes only a few speeches, a few headlines, a few flags and songs, and suddenly, death becomes a duty. Violence becomes holy, and silence becomes betrayal. That is not human nature. That is psychological engineering. And here's the most painful part. This machine doesn't care what side you're on. It uses both, funds both, arms both, because war is profitable, because fear is control, because chaos keeps people loyal. If you're too busy surviving, you won't ask deeper questions. If you're broken, you're easier to direct. If you're grieving, you'll cling to any identity that offers meaning. And that's how obedience is reborn. Again and again, wrapped in tragedy, sold as courage. The wars we see outside are just mirrors of the wars happening inside. The conflict out there is an extension of what's unresolved in here. People don't wake up and crave destruction. They act from pain, from a fragmented identity, from an internal split that's been ignored for too long. Every explosion in the world is an echo of an explosion that was never allowed to happen in the soul. And when we don't face our own darkness, we project it. We assign it to others. We call it the enemy because it's easier to fight someone else than to sit with what's broken inside ourselves. This is the psychology of war, not just between nations, but between selves. The inner child that never felt safe, the suppressed rage that was never allowed to speak, the shame that grew into hatred, the grief that hardened into cruelty. All these parts of us, rejected and exiled, become the energy behind violence. And when enough people carry this, it becomes collective, it becomes ideology, it becomes nationalism, extremism, fanaticism, not because people are evil, but because they're wounded and no one ever taught them how to bleed safely. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of us we deny, hide, suppress. And the more we suppress them, the stronger they get. They don't disappear, they distort, they leak out in anger, in projection, in blind loyalty to causes that promise redemption through violence. And society praises this. It rewards you for being numb, for being hard, for turning your back on your own pain and channeling it outward. That's not healing. That's recycling trauma into action. The myth of the hero feeds this too. The one who kills to protect, who silences emotion, who sacrifices everything. But that myth is incomplete because it never shows the aftermath. The numbness, the nightmares, the soul loss, the inability to connect, the constant need to stay in motion so you don't feel the emptiness. That is the silent war no one talks about, the one fought after the guns go quiet. And here's the paradox. The only way to truly stop war is not with more resistance, but with integration. Not by choosing a side, but by seeing both sides within. The light and the shadow, the wounded and the one who wounds, the victim and the aggressor. When you begin to recognize that both live inside you, you stop needing to project them onto the world. You stop needing enemies. You stop believing the lie that violence purifies, because you've finally faced the real battlefield, your own psyche, and you've chosen to stop running. No government, no flag, no leader has the right to decide when your life should end. Yet most people never question the authority that claims this power. They're told it's duty. They're told it's necessary. They're told it's the price of freedom. But what they're rarely told is this: any obligation that's not born from conscious agreement is not an obligation. It's coercion. And most of what people call duty is simply fear wearing a uniform. The truth is written clearly in most constitutions, legal systems, and human rights declarations. A duty must come from a contract, a real one, not a metaphor, not a cultural expectation, a contract that's knowingly, willingly signed. And if you've never signed it, then no one has the right to demand your body, your loyalty, or your silence. But the system doesn't want you to know that. It thrives on assumption, on ignorance, on the idea that just because you were born somewhere, you owe something. You don't. Being born in a country does not mean you belong to it. You belong to yourself. The land doesn't own you. The system doesn't own you. The family name, the passport, the anthem, none of it creates an automatic debt. That idea is a psychological trick, a way to make you believe that saying no is betrayal, that asking questions is rebellion. But there's no betrayal in reclaiming your sovereignty. There's only clarity. And let's be honest, no one ever explained this to you. They just assumed you'd follow. From the moment you could speak, they fed you the story. You're part of this. You must serve this. And if you don't, you're weak. You're a coward. You're ungrateful. That's not duty. That's emotional manipulation reinforced by culture, media, law, and shame. It's not freedom. It's programming. When you start seeing this, things shift. You realize how much of your life has been shaped by false contracts. Agreements you never made, but lived by. Roles you never chose, but performed. And the most dangerous of these is the silent agreement to sacrifice yourself when called upon, no matter the reason. Because deep down, you were taught that your value is tied to how much you give up, how much you bleed, how much you obey. But freedom begins where unconscious obligation ends, when you stop assuming you owe your life to ideas you never created. When you begin to question who profits from your silence, your submission, your sacrifice, when you realize that the only real duty you have is to live truthfully, fully, awake, and unowned. Staying alive in a world that glorifies death is not weakness, it's rebellion. When everything around you screams that sacrifice is noble, that self-erasure is loyalty, choosing life becomes the most radical act. But let's be honest, it's not easy, especially when you're surrounded by people who praise martyrdom, who carry their wounds like medals, who measure worth by how much pain you can endure without complaint. In that environment, saying, "I choose to live," feels selfish, feels wrong, feels like betrayal. But it's not. You were never meant to disappear to prove your value. You were never supposed to break yourself just to be accepted. That story was given to you, inherited, repeated, worshipped. And the cost of keeping it alive is your silence, your health, your joy. But the truth is, you can't serve the world by becoming less of yourself. You can't fix a broken system by breaking your own spirit. Healing doesn't come through self-destruction. It comes through presence, through honesty, through facing what hurts without letting it own you. One of the most powerful things you can do is sit with the part of you that wants to disappear. Not fight it, not suppress it, just sit with it. Listen to what it needs. Let it speak. This part isn't your enemy. It's the part that was never seen, never heard, never validated. It doesn't want death. It wants relief. It wants out of the unbearable pressure to perform, conform, obey. And the more you avoid it, the more power it gains. But when you meet it with compassion, it softens. It starts to trust you. And that's when something shifts. Here's one way to begin. Close your eyes. Imagine the part of you that wants to give up. See it clearly. Give it a shape, a face, a voice. Ask it, what are you tired of? What do you need? And then just listen. No fixing, no arguing, just presence. Sometimes, the most revolutionary thing you can do is witness your own pain without turning away, without numbing it, without dressing it up in false strength. You don't have to become someone else to be enough. You don't need to prove your worth through suffering. You don't owe the world your silence, your exhaustion, your soul. The idea that you must die to be worthy is a lie, a deep, inherited lie. And once you see it for what it is, it starts to lose its grip. You begin to feel space where there was only pressure, breath where there was suffocation, and choice where there used to be only obligation. That's where freedom begins, not with a flag, not with a title, but with a single, quiet moment where you say, I choose to live, not for anyone else, not to fulfill an idea, but because life, your life, is reason enough. There is no such thing as duty, not in the way you were taught, not in the way it was burned into your nervous system. What you've been calling duty all your life is just a mask placed on your face by others before you had a chance to speak, before you had a chance to say no. But now you're awake. Now you see it. And when you see it, really see it, the whole system starts to fall apart. No one owns you. No country, no flag, no system, no ideology. You were not born with a contract tied to your name. You didn't sign up to die for anyone. You were given life, not as a debt, but as a gift, and you don't owe it back. This idea that you're supposed to serve, obey, sacrifice, it's not sacred. It's strategic. It was built to keep you in place. And when you start to question it, you threaten everything that depends on your silence. Let's make this clear. If you're not consciously, explicitly entering an agreement, there is no obligation. If you haven't signed, if you haven't consented, if you haven't been fully informed, then you are not bound. Most people don't know this because they're trained not to ask. But once you do, once you start studying the law, the systems, the fine print, you realize how much is built on assumption, not fact. You were led to believe you must comply, but in reality, you have far more power than you've been told. And power starts with this one truth: you are free by birth, not because a document says so, not because someone granted it to you, but because no one has the right to own your mind, your body, your breath. Every idea that you owe something comes from programming. Every mask you wear was handed to you. The good citizen, the loyal soldier, the obedient child, the grateful worker. None of these are your essence. They're roles, costumes. They were strapped onto you. And now it's time to take them off. Start asking, why do I believe what I believe? Who taught me this? Where did this idea come from? Does it align with who I am now, or just with who I was trained to be? You'll find that much of what drives you isn't yours. The dreams, the goals, the urgency, the guilt. All of it has been shaped by systems designed to make you useful, but not free. The more you unravel, the more silence you'll hear. That silence is space, and in that space, your true self can breathe. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to earn your right to live on this planet. You don't have to fight in wars that aren't yours. You don't have to save people who never asked. You don't have to carry your family's trauma. You don't have to uphold anyone else's expectations. You don't owe this world anything except your truth. And your truth cannot exist inside a lie. So trust yourself, first, fully, deeply, before you trust the system, before you trust the ideology, before you trust the orders. Because deep down, your body knows. It flinches when something isn't right. It freezes when you're betraying yourself. And when you choose to honor that, when you choose to follow what's real for you, something sacred happens. You stop betraying your own soul just to belong. The world doesn't need more obedience. It needs more people who are done wearing masks, who are done dying for borrowed beliefs, who are done following paths designed to keep them asleep. If you're one of them, you're not alone. There are more of us than you think. And every time one of us stands up and says, "No more," it makes space for someone else to do the same. If these words feel like truth, subscribe to the channel. Algorithms will help others find this voice. The voice they forgot they had. Join the Telegram. We go deeper there. Unfiltered, unmasked, unapologetic. Share this video with those who are quietly questioning. They might not speak yet, but they're listening. And if you saw yourself in this, write in the comments, "I take off the mask." Let's see how many of us are ready to live without pretending. Because this isn't the end. This is the beginning of something very real.